are filled with the pain of abuse and rejection. And throughout her life, the emptiness it left drove Virginia Salazar on a desperate search for true love. The only problem was she kept finding the wrong imitation. Reporter Julie Blinn brings us her story.
She was as darling a baby as she was a little girl. In fact, Virginia Salazar looked to be carefree. But the truth is, she can remember only one good thing about growing up.
White, and it came to the hip very straight, and then it went in ruffles. And I used to love that dress because I moved my body and the little ruffles would go around, you know. And that was taken away from me. That's the only real positive thing I can remember that was really good.
Really?
Really?
In all your childhood?
Yeah.
Instead of the love and stability every child yearns for, Virginia experienced rejection.
Children, their parents come pick them up at school, or children run to their parent, you know, and hug them. And, you know, I never knew that. I never sat on my father's lap. I didn't know what that was like.
Even her mother didn't seem to want her.
She wanted to go out one night, and she couldn't get somebody to come and stay, and I was about 5. And she started yelling at me and shaking me and saying, I wish you'd never been born, and I wish you'd never been born.
Virginia was shuffled in and out of foster homes where she suffered both physical and sexual abuse. By the age of 16, she didn't want to live anymore. Did any of that make you feel like it was your fault? Did you feel defective?
Absolutely. Yeah, I felt there was something wrong with me. And it did make a difference in my relationships as I grew up. Because then, as I became a woman, of course I wanted to please. And it didn't matter what I had to do to please, I just did it.
Virginia found one escape to her chaotic world: alcohol. And later, drugs. You name the substance, she abused it.
I knew that it wasn't good for me. I knew that it was destroying me. But it gets to a point to where it's something you have to have. You crave that. Not only the addiction, but the way it makes you feel.
She married several times and had 2 children. But her emptiness didn't go away, so she kept filling it with alcohol.
I never knew what it was to have a normal home, a husband and wife and a child, and you know, and it was very difficult for me to know what was right and what was wrong, to how to raise a child even, because I know how I had been raised.
Finally, Virginia found the answer. She picked up and moved to Las Vegas, where the parties never stopped. And since her mother and grandmother both died young, Virginia figured she only had a few years left anyway.
I really had no hope that anything was going to change. I just felt that I was going to die, and that was going to be it, and that was going to be over now. That was the end of it.
The one thing different about Las Vegas was that Virginia met a Christian woman there, and that woman told Virginia the truth about God's love and forgiveness of sin.
I was so thrilled to her. I say, oh, you're Jesus freak, you know, and then God is just, people need a crutch and all these different things. But yeah, I would listen.
And one day, after a terrible blackout from drinking too much the night before, Virginia was desperate to hear more about God. She got in her car to drive to her friend's Bible study, but she couldn't recall the address.
I stopped the car and I just got hysterical. And I just started crying and yelling out, and I said, God, if there really is a God, if you're really there, you're going to have to get me to this place. And I just put my head on the steering wheel and was crying, and all of a sudden something just came over me. It was just like a lightness, and I just put my head up and started up my car and made a turn, about 3 different turns, and I drove up right behind my friend's car as she was getting out.
That night, Virginia understood the gospel and embraced Christ as her Lord. She also asked the Lord to free her from her addictions.
That night when I arrived from the Bible study, I just started dumping everything out in the sink, all ad liquor, all kinds of liquor. I just drank everything. Dumped it out, everything was gone. Slept like I never slept before. And from that day on, praise God, 13 years now, I've never yet to touch another cigarette, drugs, or another drink, and never had any withdrawal.
For a time, Virginia isolated herself to read the Bible and to pray. But instead of loneliness, she found true peace.
I felt love. And I didn't know where the love was coming from, but I felt love. I felt complete. You know, like before I always had an emptiness in me. I knew that there was hope for tomorrow, that there was a better way. And then you're giving of yourself. That's another thing. See, you get involved and you start giving of yourself, And that's fulfilling, because then you see that you're creating something, you're doing something creative. And then you see that you're really not a dummy, you know, that you can be somebody, you know, you're not just a nobody.
Virginia admits that the Christian life isn't easy, but she found fulfillment in nothing less.
There's times when you are tested and you feel many times you're not going to make it. But don't ever give up.